This biennial is almost over, but we are just getting started. What a humbling responsibility you have placed upon my shoulders. What a tremendous opportunity we have to shape the Jewish future with imagination, with courage, and with commitment. This coming week's parashah says it right up front, Vayehi miket shnatayim, at the end of 2 years. What's going to happen at the end of 2 years? I will tell you what will happen. We will gather together in San Diego for the biennial, and we will have shaped a new URJ that will become the creative force for shaping the Jewish future in the coming years together. That's what will happen in 2 years, miket shnatayim. I may be the tallest president in the history of our URJ, but know this, I follow in the footsteps of giants. In my mind's eye, I see Rabbi Maurice Eisendrath carrying a Torah scroll next to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. He knew, but too many of us have forgotten, that our Torah should never be sequestered in our synagogues. Rather, we must carry our prophetic mantle beyond the walls of our praying places to shape a more just and compassionate world for all of God's children. And I sense the prophetic and poetic presence of Rabbi Alexander Schindler, who boldly challenged us to share our Torah with the many interfaith families who felt barred from taking hold of our sacred inheritance. Our congregations are stronger thanks to the many Jews by choice and non-Jews who have committed their families to lives of Torah. And Alex made sure that the doors were open for all who felt shut out. Our LGBT brothers and sisters would no longer sit in our congregations pretending to be other than the individuals that God created them to be. Too many of the uninspired and disaffected are still kept from taking hold of our tree of life. Rabbi Eric Yoffe's vision of Reformed Judaism with Torah at the very center has inspired my rabbinate and animated this Reform movement. Eric taught us it's not enough to carry our Torah. Even more important, we must engage with it deeply through serious, lifelong Jewish study. Going forward, we will ground our powerful spiritual expression of Judaism in thoughtful, creative Torah learning. Proudly, we will carry our Torah into the world, and we will share it with all who thirst for its wisdom. So what will be my Torah for the coming years? A rabbinic colleague told me, Rick, oh man, I feel sorry for you. I mean, Eric did Torah and worship. Alex did outreach and inclusion. Maurice showed us how social justice could transform our world. You can't even change the name. They already did that, so what will you do, Rick? A new logo? Revive Shmini Atzeret? Too bad, he said, there's nothing left to do. So I ask all of you, is there nothing left for us to do? Is this as good as it gets? That's the right answer. Your presence here this morning tells me your answer. We are poised at one of the most critical and dramatic crossroads in all of Jewish history. If we stay put and leave things as they are, we will have failed the test of Jewish leadership. But we're not going to do that. We're called the Reform Movement. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to get moving. We're going somewhere. We are going to move forward with strength, with creativity, with innovation, and with commitment. So over the summer, a nice member of my congregation stopped me and she said, Rabbi Jacobs, I wish you well in your new position at UJA. My mom taught me, say thank you, say thank you. So I said thank you, but a just slight correction. I'm not going to be working for the UJA. It's the URJ. And she asked, is there a difference? A lot of people don't know what we got going on here. A lot of people lost in the alphabet soup of Jewish life. I'm guessing there are also many people in and outside our movement who ask, are we really a reform movement? Because we have not been acting and thinking like a movement. Let's be clear. All of the serious challenges facing Jewish life require movement-wide solutions. We're beginning to transform our URJ for the journey ahead, but we can't only focus on getting our own URJ house in order. No, we've already begun to work more collaboratively with the various arms of our reform movement, and we will build on that. During these past months, I've had initial conversations with over 1,000 Reformed Jewish stakeholders, national leaders, congregational presidents, youth, and others. Over and over again, I heard the pain of the serious economic challenges facing our congregations and our movement. So many of you are devoted to various institutions of Jewish life, but we're all asking, how are we going to fund our local, our national, and overseas institutions? I haven't even had my first day on the job, but some questions are just too pressing to wait, and this is one. Just weeks ago, we brought the Union for Reform Judaism, the Hebrew Union College Jewish Institute of Religion, the Central Conference of American Rabbis all together to form a task force to figure out the best, the most effective, the most fair, and transparent way for us to finance our movement's holy work. This new group will be called the Task Force on Funding Our Future. Its purpose is to rethink our movement's funding structure, especially as it relates to the traditional mum dues system. A small steering committee will bring together the best thinking from inside and outside of our movement to inform how we support the maintenance, but even more importantly, the growth of our movement in all of its breadth and depth, including nurturing our congregations, educating our clergy and our other sacred professionals, engaging future generations of Jews in this sacred work. As this crucial work moves forward, I, along with our lay leadership, and we have a strong lay leadership filled with wise, dedicated, and committed leaders, we pledge to build relationships with donors who share our vision for the Jewish future. We are committed to a transformative, visionary culture of excellence in the URJ. Our vision includes a broad array of cutting-edge, success-driven ways to strengthen congregations, engage the next generation in the Jewish world, and to extend our reach into the ranks of the uninspired and the unaffiliated. We welcome foundations and federations as our partners, and we know that the Jewish future that we imagine cannot be without a robust Reform Jewish presence and force. Ours is the Judaism of autonomy, inclusiveness, creativity, and did you hear us on Shabbat? Passion and relevance. We embrace the best of tradition and modernity, science and spirituality, ourselves and the world. We are the Reform movement for a new era, and it's time that we let the whole world know. Okay, take out your iPads. Turn them on. You're going to want to get this part down. Here are the 3 most pressing tasks for our URJ to focus on as we invite our partners to join in this critical work with us. Number 1, catalyzing congregational change. 2, engaging the next generation. 3, extending the circles of our responsibility. These 3 areas don't run parallel, but they do overlap. Congregations first, as always. 20 years ago, at the Baltimore Biennial, Rabbi Alexander Schindler reminded all of us why synagogues are unique. He said, "The synagogue is where Jews are made, where the individual soul and community are joined. It is the place where modernity and eternity cross-fertilize, where seeds of Jewish identity are sown. All other institutions in Jewish life are created by Jews. Only the synagogue creates Jews, child by child." You hear that little one right there? Child by child, family by family. Friends, in this new era of Jewish life, synagogues are far from obsolete, but they must specialize in bringing depth to our lives. They must speak to the soul. They must keep up with the best of human thought. Such a synagogue will remain the central address for cultivating a deep and nourishing Jewish life. We need an extensive network of congregations that exude excellence for this next chapter. To accomplish this crucial work, the URJ will need to undergo a transformation by rethinking and refocusing every single thing that we do. Here are some questions we should all be considering. Is my congregation the most compelling Jewish community that I can imagine? What's inspiring about my congregation? What's not working well? What's broken? What's just plain shoddy or ordinary, or so drab that no one cares whether it's broken or not? In a word, what's not really excellent? What would help me make my congregation the place I dream of? I have spent the last 30 years as a congregational rabbi asking these questions each and every day, and I have become convinced that the Jewish future of our people depends on transforming our synagogues. I know transformation is not simple or easy, but it is possible, and this transformative work changes everything, especially our sense of optimism for our collective future. We have no intention of sitting at 633 3rd Avenue in New York City telling congregations what they should be doing. We plan to work with you to build the capacity of each of our congregations. Many are struggling. Others are doing okay. Some are doing terrifically well. The great congregations are not only in big cities or on the coasts, they come in all sizes and are scattered throughout North America. But even those that are great today won't be tomorrow if they think they've figured everything out. Great congregations are always searching for new ways to do their holy work better. The URJ must become a catalyst and a convener of best practices, by sharing tools, methods, ideas, principles, inspiration, and models so every one of our 900 congregations will flourish. That is the work ahead, making all of those congregations all that they could be. Some truth. For decades, the dominant model of religious education for Jewish youth has been the service station approach. Parents drive in, drop their kids off at the synagogue as if it were a gas station, the place to fill up the next generation with Jewish gas. After dropping their kids off, parents kept on driving, sometimes didn't even stop, just moved through the parking lot, push them out the door, let them get their Jewish nourishment, come back a few hours later, hoping that they'll have that Jewish nourishment, drop them off next time, and eventually they've got enough for a lifetime. Maybe we do that because our parents suffered through Hebrew school. So we figured, well, that's part of the tradition. You're supposed to suffer at Hebrew school. Let me ask you, did you have inspirational textbooks like Pathways Through Jewish History? Or Pathways Through Jewish Prayer? Or Pathways Through Jewish Holidays? Truth be told, many of us are here today in spite of the Jewish schooling we received. Many of us still suffer spiritual scars and emptiness from the religious education that gave us too little. We may be here today in spite of that Jewish schooling, not because of it. That's not what we mean by excellence. Almost 20 years ago, some congregation, my own included, helped pioneer models that closed the old gas station. In one of them, kids are not just dropped off. Instead, parents park their cars, take their little hands, walk them in, sit with them during a spirited prayer service, where each week a different family takes responsibility for teaching and reading Torah. After checking in with each other at the Oneg Shabbat, kids go off to classrooms while parents stay and dig into the spiritual treasure trove of Judaism in adult study. The young students no longer think that Judaism is just for kids. Post-World War II, pediatric Judaism is morphing into our new and improved communities of lifelong Jewish learning. Then there's the question of membership. While 80% of American Jews affiliate with a synagogue at some point during their lives, their engagement tends to be temporary and unfortunately tenuous. No more than 50% of American Jews are members of synagogues at any one time. Jews once joined synagogues out of civic duty. It was just the right thing to do. But by the 1970s, they joined at least for their children to get a bar bat mitzvah. But increasingly, they left with the last Torah at the bar bat mitzvah party. Of all the movements, Reform Jews lead the way. This ain't a happy one. We lead the way in leaving when childhood education is over. So yes, we are growing faster than other denominations, but not yet with lifelong devotion and membership, any more than lifelong learning. And a newer trend indicates that fewer and fewer Jews will even join for their children. The fastest growing group in Jewish communal life is the lifelong unaffiliated and the lifelong uninspired, and that is not what we mean by excellence. As a movement, we have not fully figured out how to engage new members in lifelong ways, because inducing spiritual commitment is no simple matter. We do know some things, however. Before handing out membership forms or asking for dues, What if we first forge relationships of real caring? We could learn this important lesson from Chabad. Let's create relationships before collecting dues. It's pretty simple. It's really pretty simple. But how many of us have adopted that approach? So let's study a little Talmud together. Can we bring the lights up maybe a tiny bit so we can see with whom we are sitting? Now, we're not the first generation in Jewish history that needed to reimagine our Jewish world. Let's look together at a remarkably relevant text from the Babylonian Talmud, Tractate Brachot, page 28a. The setting is the Sanhedrin has just selected a new Nasi, a new president. I don't know why I like this passage. I think it's somewhat relevant to our lives. And what I'd like to do is have us just learn it together for a few moments. So if you look at it, you have it there in the Hebrew and in the English. The setting is that we have a new president. His name is Elazar ben Azariah. And he comes in and literally, Oto Hayom, on the day he starts, something dramatic happens. What happens? They remove the doorkeeper. I think bouncer is a better word. There's a guy who stands at the door of the academy only letting people who pass the test in. So the first day of his new presidency, they get rid of that person. Look in the Hebrew, you see it over there on the first line, Shomer HaPetach. That's the guy who stands there. So they remove that, and what happens? Turns out that a lot of people come into the Beit Midrash. I don't mean 20 or 30. They have to add benches. Some people say in the text they have to add 400 or 700. Some of those benches might sit 7 or 8. You are talking about thousands of people potentially who come into Jewish life because a barrier has been removed. Here's what I want you to do. Turn to your left or your right. I want you to find a Chevruta partner, or you can go 3 max. And I want you to discuss what are the most critical barriers today that keep people out of Jewish life. Just spend a couple moments with your Chevruta. What are those barriers today? Okay, we're going to I know there are a lot of things to share. Hold those great thoughts. We're going to get all of them. We got a little cross-section of our URJ up here on the stage. I'm going to ask if we could hear a few of the barriers that you came up with when you like to share. So who's got some good, bright, new things to share? What are the barriers that keep people out of Jewish life today? Yes. You know what? Would you stand up? We'll bring you the microphone so we can all hear you. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Fran Ransom, Temple Israel, Canton, Ohio. One of the barriers that we talked about is just being simply a single person or being alone and wondering whether or not you would be welcomed coming through the door.
Beautiful. So this is a hard one for us because if we don't fit somehow some mythic image of who we're looking for, you walk through single or alone, am I going to be welcomed in? So that sense of not sure about welcome. Beautiful. What other barriers do we have? Yes, in the back row.
I'm Cantor Randall Schloss from Temple Ove Shalom in Brookline. I think one real difference from our situation here in Brachot, from what we deal with now, is there's an assumption here that there's one Beit Midrash that people want to get into. And I think a primary barrier is not so much a barrier that's actually at the doors of our synagogue, but there are many B'tei Midrash, many places that our communities may want to enter, and to get them to realize that this is the Beit Midrash that they may want to enter and really see what's inside is a real challenge.
Great point. This is one big Sanhedrin. We've got so many different B'tei Midrash, B'tei Tefillah, houses of study, houses of worship. How do you even negotiate where you're trying to go in and find your way in Jewish life? How about one more terrific one? Yes, right up front here.
I'm Elaine Zecker, Rabbi at Temple Israel in Boston, and we spoke about, one is that from a kid's perspective, you're going to say...
Great, Rabbi.
My name is Forrest Yesnes. I'm the Nifty president, and I'm from Temple Israel in Minneapolis. I think that the people who decide not to come, mainly teenagers and preteens, maybe even younger than that, think that being involved in synagogue life isn't going to help them build a college resume. They think that soccer practice and violin lessons are going to look better, and that temple life, unfortunately, doesn't seem like it's necessary.
I think the other piece is the door, is that we make an assumption that, come on in, we're so welcoming, you'll have a great time here. But if we're not good listeners, and if we're not thinking about how do we make ourselves available to go out into the community, to hear what people care about, Just Congregations has taught us, we're about people, not program. And so we need to listen to what people are saying. It doesn't mean that, it means that everybody has to be there and we're going to make everybody able to come in and do everything in the congregation. We have to be really good listeners, and sometimes that's hard.
So I hope we just got a little bit clearer about the many, many different barriers that keep people outside our congregation. Now, some of those barriers are obvious, some not so much. But we have to use our ingenuity to remove as many of those barriers as possible. Here's another barrier to Jewish life. It's called the walls of our synagogue. Too many synagogues wait for new people to knock down their doors, begging to get in. We just heard that. Few congregations take responsibility for Jewish life outside their walls. A few years back, a fifth grader told her Jewish father and non-Jewish mother she wanted to have a bat mitzvah. Neither parent wanted to join a congregation, so they told her, go find a program. But make sure it's a program that doesn't require membership in a synagogue. Imagine her calls. No synagogue in the area, the Reform synagogue included, would even talk to her, let alone accept her, except for one. A remarkable Orthodox synagogue that offers religious education to non-members. Anyone who's hungry can come partake of the Jewish tradition. So the girl attended that program. She devoured her religious studies. What will she say about Reform Judaism after being ignored by us? That's not what we mean by excellence. Can't we too offer serious Jewish engagement for people like this girl? How many of our URJ congregations worry about Jewish life outside the walls of our synagogue? Number two, throughout this biennial, you've heard a lot about our commitment to engaging the next generation, the largest cohort of Jews outside our walls, after all. We've faced the hard truth about staggering percentages. You remember those kids that we asked to leave the stage? It's overwhelming that 80% leave by the end of 12th grade. And when they're finishing Ein Kelohenu at their B'nai Mitzvah, they're already looking at the door. And they're making like a beeline unless we do something. This exodus demands nothing short of a movement-wide transformation of how we interact with our youth. You've already made that commitment. We are going to focus on relationships over programs. From early childhood to B'nai Mitzvah to high school and then to college, we need a giant web of sacred strategies to give our kids roots and wings to stay grounded while soaring through this confusing world. Toward that end, we are working for the first time on coordinating all of the essential pieces of youth engagement, summer camps, Nifty in Israel, RAC teen seminars, congregational learning, both formal and informal. This movement-wide approach is going to link young people to each other, to their communities, to our people, to our Torah, and to the Holy One who imbues their ever-changing lives with depth and purpose and connection. Put your hand up if you're in your 20s and 30s in the congregation here today. Put your hand up. All right. For the first time ever, we lowered the barrier that kept Jews in their 20s and 30s from coming to the Biennial. And now we have over 500 of you with us today. That's good. But in 2 years, how about over 1,000? This is a cohort that we rarely see in our synagogues. Princeton sociologist Robert Wuthnow found that over half of Americans between 21 and 45 years of age are religiously uninvolved, and the percentage is higher for Jews, and there are over 1.5 million of them in the United States and Canada. Compared to previous generations, young Jews in their 20s and 30s wait longer to marry and have children, if they marry and have children at all. Even with children, they do not automatically join synagogues. They are averse to joining pretty much anything. And generally, they are suspicious of denominational labels. A growing network of our urban congregations, including Temple Israel in Boston, Emmanuel in San Francisco and Dallas, are actively engaging 20s and 30s inside and outside the walls of congregations. One strategy is a national project of Synagogue 3000 called Next Door. Door is the Hebrew word for generation. In Atlanta, St. Louis, Washington, D.C., Miami, and a growing number of cities, this approach has attracted our own URJ congregations because it meets young Jews where they are, in coffee shops and bars, in gyms and private apartments, outside the walls, that is. And it emphasizes relationships, not just programs, exactly what we're talking about. And this is just one bold experiment to engage the next generation. We need lots of bold experiments. The third area. The bright Jewish future requires us to extend the circle of our responsibility. We know all too well that one need not join a congregation to participate in Jewish life. In our individualistic society, many Jews have discovered that, well, it's cheaper to hire a private bar mitzvah tutor than commit to being part of a congregation. For weddings and funerals, you too can find a rabbi for hire most often, and why not, if Judaism is only about the individual? But ever since Abraham and Sarah, being Jewish has meant being part of something larger than ourselves. Judaism is about we, not just me. Sacred community is not a Jewish stop and shop that offers what looks appetizing. It is an extension beyond ourselves to those we may not know by name, people who are not just like us, those who think, earn, practice, and vote differently than we do. And this web of mutual extension that begins in the congregation is, in theory, limitless. One of those things that our morning tefillah calls Elu Devarim She'en Lahem Shi'ur, the things that have no boundaries, no limits, because the good they do goes on, making individuals into congregations, congregations into movements, movements into one single and united Jewish people, and the Jewish people into a force for good and for God throughout the world. The congregation is simply where the we becomes the we from the inner narrowness of me. Now, earlier this fall, New York Times columnist David Brooks wrote that people today are less likely to feel embedded on a moral landscape that transcends self. He quotes a very troubling study that our young people have not been given the resources by schools, institutions, and families to cultivate their moral intuitions, to think more broadly about moral obligations. The default position, which most of them came back to again and again, is that moral choices are just a matter of individual taste. Individual taste? Surely you join me in shuddering at the thought that tzedakah and tzedek are matters of taste. If schools cannot teach this elementary human decency, then synagogues must. What other institution consistently grounds us in a moral landscape? We join a sacred community not for what we will receive, but for what we will give. 2,000 years ago, the Roman leader Turnus Rufus asked Rabbi Akiva, if God loves poor people so much, why doesn't God support them directly? Rabbi Akiva took a deep breath and answered, God wishes to allow human beings to be partners in the spiritual creation of the world. That Jewish worldview has distinguished us for millennia, and it can inspire today's Reformed Jews as we live lives of service to others. We partner with God by creating a better world through truths, not tastes. The modern sage, Rabbi Joseph Soloveitchik, taught, if boiling water is poured on the head of a Moroccan Jew, the prim and proper Jew in Paris and London must scream. And by feeling the pain, he is loyal to the people. We, Reformed Jews, are reformed. But we are Reformed Jews, members of Klal Yisrael. A year and a half ago, the rabbi of our neighboring Orthodox synagogue announced in the middle of Shabbat morning services that he had to leave. He told his congregation that he was walking over to our temple because his friend's daughter was becoming a bat mitzvah. When he walked into our daughter Sarah's bat mitzvah, it was the first time he had ever been in a mixed seating service where women were leading prayer and reading Torah, by the way, very well. But he came nonetheless. He stretched himself because that's what you do when you're part of something larger than yourself. How many of us stretch ourselves to reach across the many barriers that keep us from connecting with Klal Yisrael? Now, this past summer, I had the privilege of welcoming a few busloads of our nifty teens to Jerusalem. Blindfolded, they stepped off their buses holding hands, moving slowly toward the edge of the Has Promenade that overlooks the Temple Mount in the center of Jerusalem. They were about to have their first glimpse of the city of God. You cannot imagine the look of amazement and wonder on their faces when they opened their eyes and saw the setting sun over Yerushalayim. I watched these Reformed teens fall in love with Israel, remembering my own love affair that was sparked during my junior year of college at the Hebrew University in Jerusalem. Ever since, I have spent much of my rabbinate working to strengthen Israel's security and well-being, as I know many of you have as well. I want all of our URJ congregations to see Israel the way those teenagers did, with the sparkle of the promise searing their very souls. It is up to all of us to get that done. Together, we have to foster a deep love for and engagement with Israel among North American Reformed Jews of all ages. We need Israel, and Israel needs us. Israel's not a vaccine against assimilation. Rather, it's an aspiring source of Jewish creativity and identity. Israel is not only a bundle of issues and challenges, she is our dynamic, complex, and inspiring Jewish homeland. We make common cause with our burgeoning Israeli Reform movement that has so much to teach us about how to do outreach. By necessity, Israeli Reform leaders have learned to be more assertive and more entrepreneurial in engaging those previously disaffected from Jewish life than we here in North America. When Israel gets into our hearts, then I know that we stand with Israel, never ceasing to fight for a Jewish homeland that is secure, religiously free, guided by justice, and dwelling in peace. So what will our collective Jewish future look like? It's way too early to say exactly, but with your help, I'd like to suggest that we begin by catalyzing congregational change, engaging the next generation, and extending the circles of our responsibility. In a couple of hours, most of you will be well on your way home, where new possibilities for our reform movement will continue to fill your minds. On your way home, and in the coming weeks, some homework. I want you to send me thousands of emails. I want you to send me emails about the great experiments that you are ready to try in your congregations. You see, the new URJ wants to learn all about your great ideas, especially the ones that signal a deep paradigm shift in the way we conduct our holy work. You pick the area. You got 3 choices, right? Pick the area and give us some of your best thinking. Give us some of your best experiments. And that's how we're going to move forward. And that's your homework. And I want to see my inbox filled to overflowing. In the coming months, we're going to hit the road. I, along with the senior leadership of our union, in person or virtually, we're planning to come to see you. Want to see how those experiments develop. We also want to learn about the unique challenges and opportunities in different parts of our North American movement. Yesterday, I heard an impassioned plea from a rabbi from Altoona, Pennsylvania. Her congregation is struggling. They don't have many youth to engage, and they need our help. And we will be there for them. And for the rest of the 900 URJ congregations, whatever your size, wherever you are. Now, some of your experiments we will be able to support with new incubator grants, and others will support with creative thinking and refinement. And while we're in town or nearby, we'll share with you ideas for reinventing the day-to-day work of the URJ and solicit your input so that we can make things happen throughout our movement. Friends, the biennial is almost over. But all of us, we're just getting started. Vayehi miketz shnat time at the end of 2 years. What's going to happen at the end of 2 years? I'll tell you what's going to happen. We're going to gather in San Diego for the next biennial, and at that time, the new URJ will be well on its way to becoming the creative force for shaping a bright Jewish future. Are you on board for that? Rabbi Meir of Premishlan taught that by someone's dream, it's possible to know a person. Jacob dreamt of a ladder reaching to the heavens. Pharaoh dreamt of a cow. Not all dreams are equal. And not all of them are converted into reality. That's where Joseph comes in. We are Jacob envisioning ladders to heaven, but we are also Joseph making dreams into reality, combating a world of want and challenge through concrete plans that seize opportunities, weathering tough times and lighting the way forward with Torah as our guide. I accept the faith you have shown in me today with humility and with gratitude. I need you with me, however, together, all together. We will seize this moment and shape a better tomorrow for our congregations, our movement, our people, our world. Help me, please, to open our doors, our minds, our imaginations. Grasp the Torah with me as we carry it out of seclusion. We are the Reform movement, so let's get moving. Stay standing. You look good when you stand. Stand up, stand up. The modern Israeli poet David Rokeach gives us a glimpse of what awaits us. למצפים התהילה כי להם העתיד, העומדים מול ההר ואינם נרתעים, יעלו אל פסגתו. Glory to those who hope, for the future is theirs. Those who stand unflinching against the mountain shall gain its summit. We, all of us together, are the ones who hope. And yes, we will stand unflinching against the mountain. And together, in the coming years, we will gain the summit. Come with me.